Why the economy can grow while you feel poorer. There's an economic paradox that's hard to explain simply. The economy grows on paper, but people feel like they're falling behind. Prices keep climbing, paychecks grow, but saving gets harder every year. For decades, economists thought this couldn't happen. Growth and rising living standards were supposed to be the same thing. Then the 1970s broke that assumption. The name for it, stagflation. A normal recession is a sharp shock, painful, but it ends. Stagflation is different. It drags on for years, and every tool used to fight it makes something else worse. There's no clean fix. The Phillips curve and its collapse. In 1958, economist William Phillips studied a century of British data and found a clear pattern. Inflation and unemployment move in opposite directions. Low unemployment meant workers had money to spend, so prices rose. High unemployment meant less spending, so prices cooled. This became gospel. Economists like Samuelson and Solow confirmed it for the US, and policymakers used it as a dial. Cool the economy to fight inflation, heat it up to fight joblessness. JFK used exactly this logic in the early 60s. Tax cuts fueled 5% GDP growth and record employment. It seemed like a permanent policy lever. Then came the 1970s oil shocks. Egypt and Syria attacked Israel in October 1973. OPEC cut off oil to the US in retaliation, and prices quadrupled almost overnight. Since oil touches everything, transport, manufacturing, electricity, costs exploded across the whole economy. Companies raised prices and cut jobs at the same time. Inflation and unemployment rose together. The Phillips curve, the tool the government had trusted for 20 years, simply stopped working. Gas lines stretched for blocks. Detroit's auto industry gasped for air. For nearly a decade, nothing worked because the only tool, interest rates, cut both ways. Raise them, and a struggling economy collapses further. Lower them, and prices spiral worse. Volcker's shock. In 1979, Paul Volcker took over the Fed. Unlike his predecessors, he refused to go slow. He hiked rates to 20%. Mortgages became unaffordable. Unemployment hit a post-war record of 10.5%. Farmers drove tractors to Washington to blockade the Fed. Car dealers mailed Volcker coffins packed with keys to unsold cars. Congress demanded his resignation. He didn't budge. By 1983, inflation had dropped below 3%, and the economy began to recover. The same people who'd mailed him coffins started calling him the man who saved America. No central bank has repeated that move since. It requires deliberately inflicting pain on millions and refusing to back down. Two other paths, and their costs: Japan, 1990s. Rather than force a painful cleanup after its asset bubble burst, Japan propped up banks, avoided bankruptcies, and kept rates near zero, hoping things would fix themselves. They didn't. Growth stalled for so long it's now called the lost 30 years. An entire generation growing up with flat wages and no faith that tomorrow will be better. Turkey, 2021. The opposite extreme, leadership insisted low rates would fight inflation against standard economic logic. Rates were cut from 19% to 8.5% while inflation topped 20% and kept climbing. The currency collapsed, menus stopped listing prices because they'd be outdated by the time food arrived. Inflation hit 72% in 2022. Savings lost 2/3 of their value before rates were finally hiked to 50%. Too late to avoid the damage. Why this matters now? The lesson across all three cases. There's no interest rate move that fixes stagflation painlessly. The only lasting cure is structural. Labor shortages easing, supply chains normalizing, trade routes reopening, and that can't be switched on by any central bank decision. It just has to happen on its own timeline while policymakers try not to make things worse in the meantime.